Now, while the leaders of the US and China have hashed out their differences in the search for common ground, the Chinese public has been digesting its first up-close encounter with this US president. As BON's James Aitken reports, it seems initial caution towards a new US president is gradually giving way to tempered enthusiasm.
Barack Obama's inauguration earlier this year was greeted with skepticism by China's state media. The China Daily said Obama would have to offer more than just goodwill and warned that the realities on the ground are more complex than presented by Obama. 10 months on, and there's a very different tone coming from the same paper. China Daily columnist Hong Liang said Obama's visit has made young people feel as indignant as I am about authoritarian excesses. Liang went on to say that young people in China feel they can relate to Obama, as opposed to some stern-faced Chinese officials they have learned to dread. The Chinese media has largely avoided fawning over the U.S. president on this trip, in contrast to the rock star-like reception Obama received in Europe. But there is no denying that the Obama personality factor is playing a large part in his attempts to win over the Chinese leadership, the public, and the media.
Barack Obama is about the only topic you'll see and hear on Chinese television and radio interview programs and in online chat forums. Newspapers and magazines continue to give the U.S. president front-page treatment. Obama's official Chinese reception was typically reserved and polite, but in the Chinese media, there is a growing sense that this is a very different U.S. presidential visit and a very different U.S. president.
Chinese media expert Liu Xiaoying is among many observers who are watching how the tone of this presidential visit is influencing the tune that the media is singing.
This time, the media has a full coverage of Obama's visit. The most interesting part is that they've paid some attention to his personal issues. For example, how he got the Nobel Prize, and his hometown is Chicago, which is a friendship city of Shanghai. This kind of attention paid to him shows that the relationship between the countries has been to a deeper and softer level.
But while papers like the Venerable People's Daily are calling Obama's visit yet another milestone in the history of Sino-U.S. relations, there is still plenty of history between the two countries. David Diebold has watched that relationship evolve over many years and over many thorny issues. He senses there are still many gaps in public understanding in both countries and lingering suspicions in both governments.
Obama and Hu are going to have to learn to forge a new kind of a relationship that hasn't been here before, and so I think that's always makes everybody a little cautious. But I think it's going to happen because it has to happen.
Some Chinese observers continue to maintain that the priority for America's Asian diplomacy policy is to contain China as opposed to engaging it. The Xinhua Daily Telegraph notes that although Obama's stay in Japan lasted only 24 hours, his first stop in Asia was Japan, an inference that Japan remains America's top priority. The Global Times, meanwhile, observes that compared to the Chinese people's clear image about the U.S., American opinions about China are various, complex, and vague, a result of the vigilance of senior U.S. officials and a deep divergence in values between the U.S. and China. Despite the skepticism, Professor Liu sees signs of progress in this new effort at engagement.
President Bush visited China 5 times. And this is the very first time for Obama to visit. So people are very curious about what he may bring to China. So far, we've found him keeping most of Bush's China policy. Media shows satisfaction toward his performance on this.
But improving Sino-U.S. ties and assuaging that well-entrenched mutual mistrust remains very much an uphill struggle, as Obama's heavily restricted town hall meeting in Shanghai clearly showed. Still, if the White House was hoping to get regular Chinese to become more engaged, the goal seems to have been achieved. Internet sites and blogs are buzzing with speculation and questions about Obama's visit, and many media outlets are giving the event major coverage. Making a bigger impression with China's state media could remain another challenge, however. The Monday evening main national TV news didn't mention the Obama visit until 20 minutes into the newscast. James Aitken, BON.
Now, Hal, as we heard towards the end of James's piece there, the state media reports on television really not giving much emphasis to Obama, but we've seen a huge diversion, and that's really been the exception across the board here, and very different opinions, very different coverage, but a lot of coverage here from China.
Absolutely. If we look at the Beijing news, they're putting a lot of the emphasis on the fact that this, the definition of a bilateral relationship really has taken on new meaning with this visit from President Obama. They've said ever since Obama took office, Chinese-US relations have become more equal than before. So very interesting view that paper's taking.
Yeah, quote here from the World News Journal. They quote a researcher from the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations saying that Obama is a realistic person, this person says, and will continue to express the US state's goodwill towards China amidst the financial crisis. Obviously, with the amount of Treasury bonds that China holds, it's very important that the US maintains that good relation.
Yeah, also some very positive coverage from the People's Daily, the People's Daily Overseas edition. They're focusing a lot on the fact that Obama visited the group of students first in Shanghai. What's interesting here is the difference in coverage between the international press and the Chinese press. In the international media, they were focusing very much on the issue of censorship, which was brought up. But certainly in China, in the People's Daily, they're choosing to focus more on what a positive thing it was that Obama was talking with students, first of all, when he came to Shanghai, and really focusing on the positives that this initial town hall meeting came out with.
And it really has been covered in different ways by the Western press and the Chinese press. The Western press focusing often on human rights and Obama speaking about freedom of the press. Now, that has been covered in certain areas, as we've heard by the Chinese media, but they've focused instead on other sensitive issues important to the Chinese people, such as Taiwan and Tibet.
Absolutely. Stay with us. We'll be back after this with Question of the Day.